Hello once again everyone, and welcome back to 20 Things That No One Told You About Fencing. You may notice the changed angle, and that is because today we're going to be going over the idea of letting yourself take up space. So taking up space means two different things in this context. It means how you move and how large you move, and it also means how your perception of how much space you take up in the world affects your movements. So let's start with the former. So the reason I've got this strange perspective is because I'm somewhat framing myself at the moment. I'm a tall guy, and this is one of our quadrants. In case you've never heard of that before, basically I've divided the floor into 16 by 16 squares. That's smaller than most competitive rings you'll fight in, but about as big as 2-ish or 3-ish steps out of distance for 2 people. So, the reason I did this is because I want my fighters to get used to existing in a certain amount of space and making the most of it as they fight in it. But before we get into that, we need to talk about you, how you move. One of the more common things that I notice in beginners is the tendency to not be willing to move enough. And this has mainly 2 roots. So firstly, what is moving enough? For example, let's say I've got a long sword here, that the action is requiring me to do a false edge beat, okay? So I need to get my sword from here to about here, minimum, here, maybe maximum, but no further than that, okay? Then I need to allow myself to move that much, right? And that's not hard on paper, okay? Go from point A to point B. But being willing to actually go that far is a lot harder than some people think. Especially if you're first starting off, a lot of people are more willing to go here than they are to actually let their arms go out or let their hips turn or let their chest be up. And this is for a couple reasons. One is not quite understanding how shapes work, which is something we're going to be talking about in future. And what I mean by shapes is basically you have set positions you are moving through or to at any given time. You going to that full position has a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So me getting all the way to here is important because odds are I'm going to not actually go all that far. I mean, if I go at nothing, I'm going to go here. But when I meet resistance trying to go as far as I was, then I end up here. There's that benefit of what I do against my opponent will kind of force me into that ideal shape, but I should still be shooting for the most full version of that shape, and everything ends up meeting out in the wash, right? Same sort of idea in regards to a lot of counter thrusts or what have you. We'll get to that later. Point is, though, understanding, yes, I do actually need to go that far, and I do need to let myself complete that motion, and then it's just down to timing, really, okay? So, okay, I'm not getting here in time, I'm probably moving too late. Okay, now I'm getting a far enough percussion, but I'm moving a little too far. This, I maybe need to dial more forward. These are little adjustments you can make, but only if you allow yourself to actually complete the motion. Because a complete motion, you can then adjust. But if you're not completing the motion, if you're only ever doing this or something like that, then you're never going to be able to adjust. I won't be able to get you to want to go out further. It's better to start big and then tailor small than it is to try and just go immediately for perfect and small. And I think that's one of the reasons that certain techniques that we maybe go into too soon have an impact. But separate soapbox for another time. Point is, though, the other reason that I think that people don't want to move that far is because of something not in our fencing lives, and that's, the rest of your life, the real world. It's a crowded world. There's a lot of other people out there, and trust me, I know this as a tall guy, we don't want to infringe on other people's personal space. So we, in our daily lives, are not used to having room, are not used to letting ourselves take up space or do grand motions. There's a little bit of almost social shame sometimes for people, and that's why martial arts are so good for you, or any sport, but in particular martial arts are great because it encourages you to move in unorthodox ways and to complete your movements. The same thing is true here. If I'm worried about going too far and looking silly because I don't want to move too far and get on other people's personal space, then the idea of taking up this much room, that's apprehensive. That's not something I do in my daily life. Why would I want to go that much? It is okay. It's okay to take up that space when it's being asked of you, right? For example, actually straightening your arms all the way out. I can't tell you how many times I see people cut and they don't want to straighten their arms, right? Let it go out. Let yourself complete that step. Or, okay, I need your arms up above your head. So Why are you stopping here? Let it go above your head. Let your arms be straight. Let your back get involved. Let your core get involved. All those sorts of things. Now, there is a caveat to this, of course, and I'll switch weapons to illustrate this. For example, there's further than the position is actually required. So something that's a little bit more small in its motions, literally, right? If the tierce parry only needs to go this far, which is just outside of myself, then if someone's going this far, that is, of course, something to dial back in. That's something that requires correction. But you're not going to be going that far too quick because you should be aware of how big you actually are. So, again, using this as an illustration, to be safe, let's start off in cards, right? To be safe, all I really need to do on this outside line, turn my hand over one tick, and I'm already outside of my physical body. So if I pull that back behind me, it doesn't touch me. Likewise, same idea on my cart parry. If I pull that to me, should just be missing my ribs. I'm not that physically big. I don't need to defend out there. And likewise, I don't need to defend forward and preemptively. My space, the space I occupy, is something I need to become aware of so that way I know when things are a danger. It can get relatively close. Now it's over there and I don't need to worry about it. Making sense so far? Same thing is true with every weapon you'll do. It's just most apparent with things like that, you know. If a sword is coming down toward me, I'm probably not really worried about it till it's about here, and that step starts getting committed. Now I will deal with it, right? Or now I will deal with it. Or to be fancy, now I will deal with it, right? All those sorts of things. And being aware of, okay, it takes me this much time to move fully, then I need to make sure I have the space to do so, or I need to make another tactical decision. But this is getting into a topic we'll get to later called shapes, so we'll leave that there for now. Let yourself move, let yourself complete your actions, and then be aware of how far you actually need to move to complete those actions, and everything's going to feel a lot better. You still probably could move a little bit more. One of the biggest things I always regret when I watch my own sparring footage is, I wish I'd just let myself move more. You have all this room to take up, you have all these turn muscles that are very strong and can do a lot of things for you if you will just allow yourself to use them. But if you get too worried about not taking up space, about being small, about trying to be fast or efficient, but that's not really what efficiency means here, all that's going to do is pigeonhole you, and then you probably won't be able to move enough when it is time. But the other thing I want to talk about, like I said, is the tactical side of things. So, okay, cool. I know how to move. I'm letting myself be big, I'm letting myself be open, and I'm not worried about any sort of thing hanging over my head about either embarrassment from moving or alternatively about moving too big and getting hit a lot. You gotta let yourself be free, and that's why play is important. Non-consequential play. But also, I know when to defend things when they come to my shape. How does now my shape fit into the larger world? And this is the only time you should really be self-conscious about like your height or things along those lines. So again, that quadrant. I know, as a tall guy, that me standing in an extended guard, so we'll go to long point for example, takes up about half the ring, right? So if I'm starting with my back there, I'm already pretty much threatening half of the ring. Okay, cool. So I know where my extended guards go into, but that's still with my heel against the back. If I take a step forward, I am now taking up 3/4 of the ring, which gives me 3 ranges to fight from. I push my opponent back some, I can fight out in the 3rd quarter, I can pull back to the 2nd quarter, the one I'm standing in, either defending or preparing an offense, and I can fall back 1 more quarter. This is where the things sort of matter. If you're shorter than me, then you have more divisions, right? Rather than having to divide things up in quarters, you can maybe even divide them up into like 8ths, right? Point of the matter is though, once you understand how much space you actually take up, you can also decide how much of that space you want to use. This is where depth comes in. If I let my arms out straight, then I can also let my arms retract, then I can also let my arms retract, and I can also let my body retract, and now I can let my body recede, right? That kind of layered idea, and that applies in every direction you can go and every other weapon you can use. I mean, if I know that my fully extended cart reaches so far, then let me start retracting that little bit subtly as I get closer to someone to draw them in or what have you. You can take, once you start taking up space and being okay with it, you can start playing around with what that space means to your opponent. And once you can do that, you can really surprise some people. On first glance, it's like, oh, this guy's tall. He probably can reach pretty far. I should then spend the rest of the next few minutes lying to you about how far I can reach so I can surprise you when you start getting good at dealing with my initial playbook. And you can do the same idea in a lot of different ways. But otherwise, that's just a little bit about letting yourself take up space. But the big thing that I want you to take away from this is let yourself move. It's okay. Better to be getting all of this out when you're training than to just get stuck, pigeonholed, probably over rely on some weak muscles and then get stuck for a long time. It's really hard to get out of that. Otherwise though, thank you very, very much for watching. We will go over some other techniques another time.